She is a college student and also an actress. Perhaps we cannot call her an actress, we can only call her a handyman. She is a popular actress, not even a supporting actress. Occasionally, when we are lucky, the female lead's double is her. In other words, she is the cannon fodder that charges ahead. She, as a cannon fodder, had an accident while completing a difficult action for the female lead, which resulted in her death. She was not willing to accept it. He said, "I can give you a chance to be reborn, but you need to complete the task I have set." For this opportunity, she had to travel through various script plots to complete the task. Because of her arrival, many details of the story have changed. She has changed the fate of others. Can she change her own destiny? Let's wait and see. Keywords of the novel. Cannon's Love without pop-ups, Cannon's Love TXT complete collection download, Cannon's Love latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. Mysterious Man. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Mysterious Man. She is a college student with poor family conditions. Her parents are both farmers and have no other source of income except for farming. Therefore, her family has been living a tight life, and even the money she spends every year growing up and going to school is mostly borrowed. She is very sensible and never complains. In order to alleviate the burden on her parents, she started working part-time shortly after entering university. In university, there are many students like her who study and work at the same time. She has always had a dream in her heart, which is to become an actress. Unfortunately, the tuition fees for the art college are too high, and she can only give up. Fortunately, not long after, when a certain theater recruited actors from the masses, she went there. Although she was just playing tricks and just charging ahead as an unknown cannon fodder, she still had an edge in acting. She had a beautiful dream in her heart. Perhaps over time, her cannon fodder became the supporting actress, and later became the lead actress. Unfortunately, the good times didn't last long. While completing a difficult action for the female lead, she had an accident. It was this accident that saved her life. When she realized it, she found that everything was white all around, and she guessed it was a hospital. Suddenly, she found her body floating in the air. She, with her soul in her body, looked at the silent woman on the hospital bed and whispered, "Am I already dead?" She shook her head again and said, "No, I can't die. I lived for 20 years and haven't been in love yet. Isn't it like jumping off a high altitude as a stunt double? Why did something happen? Oh my goodness, don't you play with me like this, okay?" She is only 19 years old and has a bright future waiting for her. In reality, she is timid and afraid of things. Although she cannot be considered a good person who loves to help others, she is definitely not a villain who harms others. She can't die like this, she still has a lot to do. She hasn't even held a boy's hand, and she really wants to fall in love. The person she secretly admires in her heart is Jinlian, who is her male god. She is a Cinderella who doesn't look very good. She knows it's impossible to marry him, but she also wants to live for him. As long as she can continue to be his loyal fan and pay attention to his life every day, it's enough. She thought sadly like this, but when she thought about it, it turned out that she was indeed dead. Watching her mother crying by the bed, and the hospital staff coldly pulling her away and pushing her body to the morgue, she had no choice but to float in the air like a transparent person, looking helplessly at everything in front of her. Am I just disappearing into the real world like this? She was unwilling to accept it. She let out a desperate cry in her heart, but who would come to save her, who has become her soul? Just as she was truly feeling hopeless and her soul was about to disappear into this world, a blurry figure appeared, becoming clearer and clearer. When she saw the person coming, she couldn't help but be overjoyed that he was her favorite male god, Jinlian. Seeing him once before death shows that heaven still sympathizes with her. She is satisfied and closes her eyes, waiting for her soul to dissipate for the last time. Do you want to live on? I can give you a chance to truly be reborn. The man's seductive eyes looked at her. Rebirth. What if I could like you again? She opened her eyes and looked at the man with anticipation. Do you like me? Does the girl know me? The man asked in surprise. Aren't you Jin Haochen, the wealthiest young master of the Jin family in the world, and the good-looking Jin Haochen? She pursed her lips, paying attention to him every day. How could she mistake him? Oh, the girl treated me like him. I'm not him, you could say I'm another him. The man smiled slightly. Seeing the man smile, she was once again stunned. The man was already good-looking, but she didn't expect this smile to be even more beautiful. She looked at him foolishly, almost drooling. Have you seen enough, girl? Can we get down to business now? The man put away his smile and asked seriously. I am willing, she nodded affirmatively. If there was a chance for rebirth, who would choose death? Only fools would give up the opportunity. But the rebirth I gave you is conditional. Only by accepting my conditions and completing the task as agreed, can you have a real chance of rebirth, said the man. What conditions? She asked curiously. The game rules I have set are that your soul travels through different storylines. You may be a human, a demon, a woman, or a man, the man said softly. I have always enjoyed watching through you since I was young, and I would be happy to personally experience it. I accept your offer, she said with a smile. She loves watching through you the most, and the recently watched Drunken Linglong is an adaptation of a time travel novel. Although it's a game, time travel has tasks. If you can't complete the tasks, not only will you not be able to be reborn, but you will also lose the chance for your soul to reincarnate in the end. At that time, you will really disappear, the man glanced at her and reminded her. So serious. Let me think about it. She frowned. Although under normal circumstances, the soul has a chance to reincarnate before disappearing, it needs to drink Meng Patang. After drinking Meng Patang, the past is forgotten, and nothing is remembered. It's no different from disappearing forever. No, she doesn't want to be reincarnated like that. Although she is just a Cinderella, Cinderella also has a dream. In order to fulfill this dream, she is willing to take risks, isn't it just playing time travel? Thinking of this, she nodded and said, I am willing to accept your conditions and try my best to complete each task, but how do I know the progress of completing the task? If you have data, look. The man waved his hand and a set of data appeared in front of her. Gender. Female, variable, name. And Yanbing age. 20 years old intelligence. 40, out of 100, appearance. 52, out of 100, physical strength. 52, out of 100, force. Currently unavailable skill. Currently unavailable specialty. Currently unavailable charm. 10 out of 100 spiritual power. 10 integral. 0, obtained by completing tasks, can be used to extract various items or skills. Rebirth rate. 0, this is the initial data I gave you. When the degree of rebirth reaches 100, you can truly be reborn. How about that? The man asked. It's too difficult, she frowned and said, failing many times. She didn't have any skills or specialties, which made it difficult for her to complete the task. There's too much data, I can't remember. Is there a simple one? She looked at the man awkwardly. So, how should she complete multiple tasks? So, as long as you remember to earn points, you keep earning points. Points can be exchanged for props and skills, which can help you complete tasks. If you do well, I can give you an additional reward, giving you a chance to see him in reality. The man smiled and said. It seems that this reward is good. Can you see that you can marry him in one go? She still shook her head. Meeting is the beginning of your fate. If you want to have both fate and destiny, it depends on how well you complete the tasks. After completing all the tasks, there are 2 additional tasks. If you can also complete those 2 additional tasks, then you will have both fate and destiny with him. The man smiled slightly again. She froze again as she watched, thinking to herself that even if she couldn't see him in reality, it seemed good to see him in front of her every time she completed a task. Looking at me like this again, silly girl, have you figured it out? Seeing her lascivious expression, the man was not angry at all, but still smiled beautifully. For the sake of her ideal male god, she decided to fight hard. With this in mind, she nodded and said, I've figured it out. I'll accept all the conditions you've given me. Okay, the first time I give you a task, you can choose it once, but you can't choose any tasks from now on. I'll arrange everything at my discretion, the man said. Okay, you say it, she nodded, letting herself choose once was also good, and then she was mentally prepared. 1 Painted Bride 2. Jinlian's changes the CEO of the underworld and me. You can choose one of these 3 tasks. Looking at the 3 tasks in front of her, she began to ponder in her heart. She thought to herself that the painted bride was too terrifying and the underworld was not easy to deal with. She decided to choose Jinlian's change. Thinking of this, he asked, what does Jinlian's change refer to? In the original drama, Jinlian and Shimin-Qing killed Wu Daolong after being together. Wu Song killed Shimin-Qing and Jinlian in order to avenge his brother. Your mission is that Jinlian cannot die in Wu Song's hands, the man said calmly. Oh, it's like this, I'll take on this task, she thought for a moment and said. Well, great, close your eyes, please remember that in every plot, even if you live hard, you are not allowed to commit suicide. Once you commit suicide, your mission will be considered a failure, the man warned. She nodded and closed her eyes, feeling very nervous. She didn't know what kind of fate she was waiting for, but she fought hard for the male god in her heart. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Jinlian 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Jinlian 1. When she opened her eyes, she saw herself in a very rudimentary room. Although it was simple, it could also be seen that it was in ancient times. Because the architecture and decoration were different from modern times, it seemed that she had really traveled through time. The original story is that Jinlian married Wu Daolong, who sells xiaobing, baked cake and griddle. Because Wu Daolong is ugly and short, Jinlian doesn't love him. What she loves is Wu Song, the martial arts hero, who is Wu Daolong's younger brother. Wu Song was born to the same father and mother, but Wu Song respected her as his sister. In law, and Jinlian was not reconciled. Later, she met Shimin-Qing, who is good. Looking and wealthy, under the guidance of Wang Pe, and got in touch with Shimin-Qing. In order to stay with Shimin-Qing, Jinlian and Wang Pe joined hands. They conspired to kill Wu Daolong. When Wu Song found out the truth, he killed 2 people. Her soul crossed over to Jinlian, but now she didn't know where the plot was going because the mysterious man didn't give her Jinlian's memory. She sat up from the bed, finished washing, and saw that there was no one in the room. She pushed open the window and indeed saw the tea house opened by Wang Pe not far away. She is a person who loves cleanliness. When she saw some dirty clothes piled up in the room, she was also idle, so she washed the dirty clothes. But where is it cool? She knew that the house was rented because in order to save Jinlian, Wu Daolong gave all the silver and the money from selling the old house to the madam, and then redeemed Jinlian. The rented house now is on the 2nd floor. Seeing that she couldn't cool her clothes, she opened the window, found a bamboo pole, and draped her clothes over it. She extended the bamboo pole from the window to cool a few pieces of clothes. Looking at this rudimentary room, she felt worried and didn't know how long she could stay here. After thinking for a while, she said, if you're safe, then be safe. Let nature take its course. The house was not big, with 2 bedrooms and a kitchen. She went to another room to take a look, and it seemed like someone was living there. She thought to herself, is it Wu Song? If it's not Wu Song, then it's Wu Daolong living. If it's Wu Dalong living, what does that mean? Anyway, Pan Jinlian and Wu Dalong slept separately, and she was still happy. Firstly, she couldn't accept Wu Dalong as her husband in her heart. Secondly, she had never been in a relationship in modern times and didn't quite understand emotional matters. At this time, she skipped dating and directly accepted a man as her husband. She really couldn't accept it. Anyway, Pan Jinlian's name now means Wu Dalong's wife. After thinking about it, she also tidied up the other room and washed the dirty clothes in it. After finishing everything, Wu Dalong still didn't come back. She opened the window again and looked bored at the crowds passing by on the street, thinking to herself how she, as a modern person, should live here. After looking for a while, she withdrew her gaze and looked at the fabric being cut on the table. It was then that she remembered Pan Jinlian's skillful hands. She looked at her own hands, but she didn't know anything. What should she do? After thinking about it, I quickly put away the fabric. Anyway, it was made by Pan Jinlian for myself. If Wu Dalong didn't ask, it would be even better. If Wu Dalong asked, I would find a reason myself. Just as she hid the clothes, she suddenly realized that the weather had changed and it seemed like it was going to rain. Thinking of the cold clothes outside, she hurriedly went to collect them. When collecting the bamboo pole, she didn't expect it to slip down and fall off, only to hit a man on the head. He was unlucky. Since he hit someone, an apology is still needed. I'm sorry I hit you, I'm sorry, she said apologetically as the man looked up. The man was Shimin Qing. He looked up and was about to curse, but saw a pair of bright eyes, especially her delicate appearance, which made him lose focus. He didn't get angry but unexpectedly smiled at her and said, "It's okay, I'll have someone send the bamboo pole up." After giving a glance to the people around him, the person hurriedly returned the bamboo pole. She breathed a sigh of relief when she saw that the man was not angry. She didn't know that the person in front of her was Shimin Qing, and didn't think much about it. After the man thanked him by putting on the pole, she closed the window. Shimin Qing stood for a while, but when he saw her no longer opening the window, he felt a bit disappointed and walked away. Having nothing to do, she picked up the bronze mirror on the table and looked at her face in the mirror. She was indeed a beauty, with a melon seed face, watery big eyes, and a plump waist. When she grasped it, the area where she should have grown flesh would have grown. It was really necessary to have flesh and a figure. No wonder Shimin Qing fell in love with her and even framed Wu Dalong by any means for her. I don't know how this Shimin Qing looks. That man just now seemed to be pretty good, but those peach blossom eyes didn't seem good at first glance. Is he Shimin Qing? While lost in thought, I suddenly heard a knock on the door. "Madam, I'm back." "Open the door." It was Wu Dalong who had returned, and the thought of him made her heart inexplicably nervous. After some thought, she bravely opened the door. Wu Dalong is indeed a dwarf, with an average appearance. When she saw him, she couldn't help but think of Tuxing's son in the list of gods. Such a person may feel disappointed when she becomes her husband, but she knows that Wu Dalong is an honest and kind person. Thinking of this, she comforts herself in her heart. It's okay to be ugly, but she can't have a bad heart. "Madam, what are you thinking?" Wu Dalong couldn't help but ask as he saw her in a daze. "It's nothing, are you hungry? I'll go prepare something to eat." She turned around and prepared to leave. "Lady, this is the money for selling xiaobing, baked cake in griddle, today. I used to cook, so let me do it." Wu Dalong put down his burden and went to cook. She was taken aback for a moment and instinctively took the money, thinking to herself, didn't Pan Jinlian do nothing at home before? Wu Dalong is tired from selling xiaobing, baked cake in griddle, all day. How can he go home and cook? With this in mind, she walked into the kitchen and saw Wu Dalong busy cooking and cutting vegetables. She said, "Let me make the fire." Wu Dalong nodded without further persuasion. Soon, the simple meal was ready. During the meal, Wu Daolong remained silent, he remained silent, and she didn't know what to say, so she fell silent. After dinner, Wu Daolong stood up and prepared to wash the dishes. She rushed to say, "I'll go, you rest for a while." Wu Daolong looked at her in surprise, feeling that today she was different from before, but he couldn't say where she was different. He was already a quiet person, and after thinking for a while, he returned to his own room. When she walked out of the kitchen, Wu Daolong disappeared. She didn't know what he had done, so she went back to the room and waited. After a while, Wu Daolong walked into the room with a clean basin. She thought he was going to sleep with her, blushing and her heart pounding. Unexpectedly, Wu Daolong put down the bedpan and said, "Madam, rest early." Then she walked out. She was taken aback when she saw him like this and secretly asked, "What is the situation?" After getting married, there are people who have different sexual relationships. Is it true that Wu Daolong is short in body and not good in that aspect? If it's not like that, why doesn't he put a delicate beauty aside? Looking at the empty room, she lay in bed unable to fall asleep and her mind was filled with thoughts. This is her first day in ancient times and the beginning of her first mission. In order to be reborn, she made up her mind to pass each level one by one. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Pan Jinlian 2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Pan Jinlian 2. When Shimin Qing returned home, still thinking about the woman he met, Li Pinger quietly walked out and sweetly called out, "Officer, it's getting late, it's time to rest." In the past, Shimin Qing favored Li Pinger the most because he thought she was the most beautiful. However, today when he met that woman, he even compared Li Pinger, and Shimin Qing began to look at Li Pinger with displeasure in his heart. "Officer, what are you still thinking?" Li Pinger walked up to him and leaned his soft body, causing Shimin Qing to temporarily forget about the woman. He picked up Li Pinger and walked into the room. The two of them struggled for a while before Li Pinger fell asleep. Shimin Qing opened his eyes and remembered the woman again, imagining what it would be like to hold her in his arms. Thinking about it, he had an idea in his heart, made up his mind, and finally closed his eyes with peace of mind. The next morning, Shimin Qing arrived with a follower at the place where he saw the beauty yesterday. However, the window of the beauty remained tightly closed, and after looking for a long time, he couldn't see it open. Shimin Qing was anxious, but he didn't dare to risk losing his call. He looked around and saw that the nearest tea house to him was one. After thinking about it, he lifted his foot and entered the tea house. There is only one elderly woman in the tea house, and as long as there is someone, a hypocritical smile accumulates on her face. "Please sit down, high-ranking officials," the woman quickly came over with a smile on her face to greet. "How to address it?" Shimin Qing asked. "Just call me Wang Po." "What kind of tea do high-ranking officials want to drink?" Wang Po asked with a smile. "Bring the best tea," said Shimin Qing. "Okay, just a moment." Wang Po was overjoyed and calculated how much money she could earn today. In no time, Wang Po came out with a teapot and poured a cup for Shimin Qing. Shimin Qing took a sip and nodded in satisfaction. Shimin Qing took out an ingot of silver from his pocket and patted it on the table. He smiled and said, "I asked you about someone. As long as you tell the truth, this silver will belong to you." Seeing the silver, Wang Po's eyes widened and she said, "The high-ranking official asked the right person. I don't hide anything from the high-ranking official. There are no people or things in this area that I don't know." "Then let me ask you, do you know that family?" Shimin Qing raised his hand and pointed to the window he saw yesterday. "Yes, the man's name is Wu Daolong, who sells xiaobing, baked cake and griddle. Wu Daolong is short and ugly, and his wife Pan Jinlian is a famous beauty. It's a pity that a flower was inserted in cow dung," the old lady said regretfully. Originally, she had already married someone. Shimin Qing felt a bit disappointed and unwilling in his heart. People are often like this, and the less they can get, the more they want to get. This silver belongs to you, take it, said Shimin Qing. Thank you, high-ranking official. Wang Pe picked up the silver with a smirk. Seeing her greedy appearance, Shimin Qing's eyes turned and he said, "Are you familiar with that Wu family lady? She comes here occasionally. Wu Dalong goes out to sell xiaobing, baked cake and griddle, every day, and she is lonely at home." Grandma Wang doesn't know why Shimin Qing asked about Pan Jinlian, but she guessed something by looking at Shimin Qing's expression. Shimin Qing placed 2 ingots of silver on the table and said, "If you can make an appointment with her tomorrow, these 2 ingots of silver will be yours. If it can be a good thing, there is also a heavy thank you." "Okay, we can definitely make an appointment." Wang Pe saw the silver and her eyes narrowed with a smile. "Okay, that's settled. I'll come back tomorrow." Shimin Qing put away his money and walked out of the tea house. And Yanbing didn't know that others were plotting against her. She was lying in bed without heart and soul. She couldn't sleep last night. She originally intended to get a good sleep. After getting up in the morning, she accompanied Wu Dalong to sell xiaobing, baked cake and griddle. Anyway, she can't stay at home all the time. She has hands and feet, and is sorry not to do anything. Although she thought so, it was noon when she woke up and felt hungry. After washing, she went to the kitchen and wanted to make something for herself. After uncovering the pot, she found that there were several xiaobing, baked cake and griddle, and a dish in the pot. She picked up xiaobing, baked cake and griddle, and ate a few mouthfuls. The taste was good. No wonder Wu Dalong's xiaobing, baked cake and griddle, was selling well, but the people were not very good. It was a pity. She didn't expect Wu Dalong's craftsmanship to be so good. After eating xiaobing, baked cake and griddle, and eating a few mouthfuls of food, she became more fond of Wu Dalong. Unexpectedly, this man took care of people very carefully. After eating and drinking enough, she began to feel bored again. There was nothing she could do. Ancient times were too backward, with no phones or computers. What could she do at home? She had to open the window and board herself with the scenery. She wanted to go out and explore, but she always had no sense of direction and was a road enthusiast. She was afraid of getting lost when she went out, so she thought to herself that she would go out with Wu Dalong another day. When her gaze fell on the tea house, it happened to meet Wang Po's eyes. Wang Po smiled and said, "Madam Wu, come down and have a cup of tea. Don't stay at home all the time. Forget it today, let's reschedule." And Yanbing politely declined. She remembered that the book said that Shimin Qing and Pan Jinlian were tied by Wang Po, so she had no good feelings for people like Wang Po. She didn't know how many good women this Wang Po had caused harm to, but because the two families were neighbors, she didn't want to offend her openly. "Okay, how about tomorrow?" Wang Po still persisted, wanting to earn money from Shimin Qing. "Let's talk about it tomorrow," and Yanbing withdrew her gaze, too lazy to talk to Wang Po again. "Time is slow, how can I pass the boring days in the future?" And Yanbing lowered her head and pondered for a moment before saying, "Let's find something to do, but what are we doing?" Thinking that Wu Dalong's younger brother is Wu Song, who is a famous hero in fighting tigers, since he is a hero in fighting tigers, his martial arts must be good. So go to his room to search, maybe you can find some martial arts training materials. She doesn't want to be a hero in the world when practicing martial arts, she just wants to defend herself. Thinking of this, she stood up and entered the room where Wu Dalong was sleeping. She knew in her heart that as long as Wu Song returned home, he would definitely live in this room. And Yanbing searched the room, and when her gaze fell on an old wooden box, she curiously walked over and opened it. It turned out to be some small items, which were handmade at a glance. She didn't know if they were made by Wu Dalong or Wu Song. She curiously looked at this and then at that, continued to scroll down, and finally found a booklet. When she opened it, she found that it was all men without clothes. Her face turned red, but she couldn't help but continue to look. Fortunately, she was a modern woman with thick skin. After reading it for a while, she could see the hidden meaning in the booklet. Unexpectedly, this was a martial arts training booklet. She didn't wear clothes, just to make it easier for practitioners to recognize acupoints. This book also mentions that the moves practiced by men and women are different, and this set of swordsmanship is suitable for both men and women. And Yanbing didn't have a good memory before. For some reason, she only read this booklet once and even jotted down all the content. She put the booklet back into the wooden box, and when she returned to her room, she began to cross-legged meditate and practice the first move. Now she doesn't know how to collect and exhale. She could only sit there and explore on her own. Fortunately, in modern times, she loved reading martial arts novels, thinking about the mental techniques in those novels, and then combine them with this booklet. Soon, she found a suitable technique for practicing and began to practice it. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Pan Jinlian 3. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4 Pan Jinlian 3 It's another sunny day. And Yanbing was going to talk to Wu Daolang and ask him to take her to sell Xiaobing, baked cake and griddle. But she changed her mind after having a martial arts training brochure. She decided to practice martial arts at home. Even if she could only practice 10% or 20%, she would at least have the ability to protect herself. While sitting cross-legged, I suddenly heard someone calling me, "Is the Empress Wu of the martial family there?" "Who?" And Yanbing didn't know who was looking for her and opened the door. "It's me," Wang Pa said with a smile. "What's up?" And Yan asked expressionlessly. Seeing this, Wang Pa made her angry. If it weren't for her, Pan Jinlian might not have died. "There are many people in the tea house today, can you help me?" said Wang Pa. "I used to ask for my help, will you go or not?" After hesitating for a moment, she decided to go and take a look. Anyway, the two families were neighbors, but this Wang Pa must not be a good person. It's better to be cautious. After thinking about it, she quietly brought something with her. "Okay, let's go." And Yanbing nodded at her. "Madam Wu, please." Wang Pa smiled as she agreed. When she arrived at the tea house, and Yanbing saw that there weren't too many guests and muttered, "I was deceived." I was about to leave, but two men blocked her way. "My young master wants to see the girl, please." She then pushed her into a room and closed the door. And Yanbing looked at the room, which was very simple, with only one bed and a few chairs. At this moment, there was a person sitting on the chair, who was the man who was hit by her bamboo pole that day. "Who are you?" And Yan asked expressionlessly, pondering how to escape in her heart. "My name is Shiman Qing, and I fell in love with the girl as soon as I saw her that day," Shiman Qing said with a smile. This person is indeed Shiman Qing, and Yanbing secretly exclaimed in her heart that it was terrible. Isn't it that she is now in the mouth of a tiger? After calming down, he said, "Thank you to the officials of the West for looking up to me. It's just that I have already married someone." "Miss, you mean that Wu Daolang? He's short, ugly, and poor. Why don't you leave him and me?" Shiman Qing continued to bewitch Yanbing. "He's not good, but are you good? I heard you've married Lady Wu Fang, and I don't want to compete for favor with others. Let's just forget it. As long as the girls are willing to come with me, I can take them off, I promise." "Unfortunately, you're not my dish," and Yanbing glanced at him and said. "What does the girl mean by that?" Shiman Qing didn't quite understand. "It's nothing, please let me go." And Yanbing didn't want to entangle with him anymore. "If today's girl can't satisfy me, I'm afraid she won't be able to leave here." Shiman Qing blocked her way. "What do you want to do?" And Yanbing angrily said. "You are a beautiful woman, I am a young man. What do you think we should do in the room?" Shiman Qing approached her with a wicked smile. I heard that Shimin Qing knows some martial arts, but it seems that hard work is not good for her. Thinking of this, and Yanbing blinked her eyes and said, "Can you make me think about it? I haven't drunk water today, can you let me drink some water first?" "Well, I'm not in a hurry, girl, please." Seeing her let go, Shimin Qing felt happy in his heart. And Yanbing picked up a clean tea cup, poured a glass of water, took advantage of Shimin Qing's carelessness, put the medicine into the water, picked up the teacup and pretended to take a few sips, then walked over to Shimin Qing's side and said with a charming smile, "Shida officials are more handsome than Dalong, and their family is also better. As long as Shida officials can wrest those few wives, I will naturally be happy." "Are you serious?" Shimin Qingla's heart blossomed and suddenly gave her a kiss on the face. In order to implement her plan, she smiled even more coquettishly and said, "As long as you drink this glass of water, you can do whatever you want to do to me." Without hesitation, Shimin Qing took the cup and opened his mouth to drink all the water in it. He picked her up and walked towards the bed. Putting down an Yanbing, she quickly took off her clothes and just shouted, "Beauty, I'm here." She fainted. And Yanbing sat up from the bed and gave Shimin Qing a resentful glance before getting out of bed. In order to avoid suspicion, she deliberately sat in the room for a while and then messed up her clothes and hair before knocking on the door and saying, "Your young master is tired and said to let me go back first." Upon hearing this, a man opened the door but still felt uneasy. He called for Wang Pe, who went to the bedside to look at Shimin Qing and then at her. Seeing that her clothes were messy and her face was shy, he nodded and asked the two of them to let her go. When Yanbing returned home, she wiped and rubbed the place where Shimin Qing had kissed her. She cursed Shimin Qing more than 10 times in her heart, even her ancestors for 18 generations. Only then did her mood recover. She was a modern woman, as long as she didn't lose her virginity. With this in mind, Yanbing returned to her room once again and continued practicing the martial arts mentioned in the booklet. About 30 minutes later, Shimin Qing in the tea house woke up and looked at the room in confusion, then remembered what had happened. "Are the officials of the Western Grand Court satisfied with the Lady Wu?" Wang Pe asked with a smile. Shimin Qing frowned and thought to himself, "If I were deceived, wouldn't I be laughed at by others? How can I continue to do things in the future? It's better to say that I'm satisfied. When I have the chance in the future, I'll torture her hard." Thinking of this, he said, "I'm very satisfied. I'll give you this silver as a reward." After tossing 2 ingots of silver to her, he left with his 2 subordinates. I didn't expect that Lady Wu of the Wu family would quickly fall in love with Shimin Qing. In the future, their meeting will definitely bring me benefits. Wang Pe looked at the silver and felt even happier as she thought about it. And Yanbing sat in the room for a while. It was estimated that Wu Daolong would be back soon, so she went to the kitchen to cook meals. There were also ready meals. There was money for Wu Daolong to sell xiaobing, baked cake and griddle. It was not too hard to live a small life. As soon as the food and dishes were ready, I heard the sound of the door opening, followed by Wu Daolong's voice. "Madam, I'm back." And Yanbing walked out to take what was in his hand and set it aside. Wu Daolong looked at her and handed her the money, saying, "Madam, this is the money sold today." And Yanbing accepted the money but didn't say anything. "Madam, this hairpin is for you." Wu Daolong smiled and handed a hairpin to Yanbing. "Do you like it?" "The hairpin is very ordinary, but it looks very nice." She nodded and said, "I like it." Upon hearing this, Wu Daolong was overjoyed. He walked into the kitchen to prepare for cooking, only to find that the food had already been prepared, and his heart was even happier. "You've been busy all day, eat more," Yanbing said gently. She doesn't love this man at all, but she sympathizes with him and knows he's a good person in her heart. "Okay, I'll eat." This was the first time she had taken the initiative to cook a meal for him, and Wu Daolong was a little moved in his heart. Thinking that Wu Daolong has helped Pan Jinlian a lot, although she is not Pan Jinlian, and Yanbing decided to repay this debt of gratitude for her. Although she does not love Wu Dalong, she can treat him as her brother and willingly serve him for a lifetime. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Pan Jinlian 4. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Pan Jinlian 4. When she got up in the morning, she saw that Wu Dalong was leaving her alone again. And Yanbing said hurriedly, "Dalong, I'm bored at home. I'd better sell Xiaobing, baked cake and griddle, with you." Wu Dalong looked at her and shook his head. "I'm tired of walking around the street. I'm afraid you can't bear it, so you should stay at home." "I don't want to be at home. If you don't take me, I'll go out on my own," she pouted angrily. "Being at home all day is so boring, I really want to go out and hang out." "Okay, I'll take you out," Wu Dalong said helplessly. If she were to go out on her own, he would be even more worried. Seeing that Wu Dalong agreed, and Yanbing smiled, and the two of them walked out of the house. This was her first time strolling the streets since coming to ancient times. She looked around curiously, but didn't expect it to be really lively here. "De Lang, is this your daughter? Law. She's really beautiful," he said with a smile as he met several people greeting him. Dalong nodded, but did not speak. He just shouted to sell Xiaobing, baked cake and griddle, all the way, and the money was taken by Yanbing. In this way, while selling Xiaobing, baked cake and griddle, and Yanbing felt pain in her feet soon, which was a symptom of lack of exercise. She was embarrassed to tell De Lang. But De Lang was very careful. He noticed that her face was different, so he guessed a bit. He walked up to a big stone, wiped it with his sleeve, and said thoughtfully, "You're tired, take a break here." And Yanbing didn't show any affectation and sat down. De Lang also sat down on the side. As soon as she rested for a while, she heard the sound of drums and gongs playing on the street, and some people were shouting, "The hero of the tiger fight is wandering the street. Idle people should make way. Tiger fighting hero." And Yanbing blinked her eyes and immediately thought of Wu Song, speculating that Wu Song had returned. "Dalong, let's go take a look and see if Erlang has returned." And Yanbing said softly, feeling curious about Wu Songchang's situation. "Okay, let's go take a look." De Lang picked up the burden again and the two of them squeezed into the crowd. Wu De Lang opened his eyes wide and saw that the man riding a tall horse and wearing red flowers was really his younger brother Wu Song. And Yanbing also saw Wu Song, who was indeed a talented person. No wonder Pan Jinlian has liked him since childhood. She never expected that the two brothers with the same parents would have such a big difference. It's like a world on earth. Erlang, Wu Dalong walked forward excitedly. "Brother, why did you come?" Wu Song dismounted and quickly grabbed his brother's hand. "I was selling Xiaobing, baked cake and griddle, on the street. When I heard the sound of gongs and drums, I came to have a look. It was really you. Brother, let's go home." Wu Song explained to the others and followed behind Wu Dalong. "Erlang, this is your sister. Law. Wu Dalong pulled in Yanbing and introduced him to Wu Song. "Jinlian." Wu Song opened his mouth in surprise. Unexpectedly, after several years of not returning home, many things seemed to have changed. This woman, whom he had always dreamed of marrying since childhood, had now become his eldest brother's wife. He had a lot to ask in his heart, but in front of his eldest brother, he couldn't speak up and had to silently follow him home. And Yanbing also remembered some things when she saw Wu Song. Pan Jinlian seemed to be a childhood sweetheart with Wu Song. Pan Jinlian was supposed to marry Wu Song, but for some reason she married Wu Dalong. Because she had traveled through time and did not inherit Pan Jinlian's memory, it became a mystery for her. If Wu Song asked her, she really didn't know how to answer. "You two brothers chat, I'll go cook." After returning home, she hurriedly went to the kitchen to avoid embarrassment. "Erlang, take a break first, and I'll go buy some meat and wine." Wu Daolong smiled and walked out of the house. Jinlian. When did you marry my brother? Wu Song entered the kitchen and asked in Yanbing. She couldn't recall this question and could only vaguely say, ask your brother. You asked me to ask my brother, how can I say it out loud? Wu Song said painfully. Erlang, I'm sorry. She can only apologize to Wu Song for Pan Jinlian now. It's all my fault, I've been away from home for too long, Wu Song said with self-blame. Erlang, here comes the wine. Wu Daolong's excited voice came from the door, and Wu Song quickly walked out of the kitchen. Jinlian, pour Erlang wine quickly. Wu Daolong gave her a glance. Erlang, I'll toast you. And Yanbing quickly poured a glass of wine and handed it to Wu Song. Thank you, sister. In law, Wu Song picked up his glass and drank it all in one gulp, his eyes filled with helplessness and pain. It was originally a happy reunion, but it became somewhat awkward due to some things. After dinner, An Yanbing went to the kitchen to tidy up, while Wu Daolong went to the room to tidy up. Wu Song was about to help Wu Daolong tidy up the room, but he was called away by several officials and didn't come back until very late. Jinlian, you sleep on the bed and I sleep on the floor. Don't let Erlang know about our separate rooms. When she was worried about how to sleep tonight, she did not expect that Wu Daolong planned to sleep on the floor. Daolong, the floor is too cold and you will get sick. Let's sleep in bed together. Although she didn't want to sleep in the same bed as Wu Daolong, seeing him lying on the ground, and Yanbing still felt a bit guilty. It's okay, I'm in good health and have strong resistance, Wu Daolong said as he lay down on the floor. Seeing him insisting on his own, she couldn't say anything more. After washing up, she also went to bed. Lying in bed, she once again thought of Wu Song. In modern times, she admired Wu Song as a person. There are 108 heroes in Liangshan, and if anyone likes him, it is Wu Song. And Yanbing not only likes him, but also respects and appreciates him. If she could marry a great hero like Wu Song, it would not be in vain to visit ancient times. Wu Song returned home, lying in bed, but remembered the past. He and Jinlian grew up together and admired each other since childhood. Although neither of them explained it, they knew each other's feelings and knew that they liked him. Why did she marry her elder brother without waiting for her? Wu Song couldn't figure it out and thought to himself, what has happened in these years? Ask Pan Jinlian, she won't say it, but when she asks her brother, he feels embarrassed to ask. It seems that we can only slowly investigate. At this moment, Wu Daolong, who was lying on the ground, did not sleep. He was not a fool. He knew about Erlang and Pan Jinlian, but after Erlang left home for several years, there was no news of him. When someone told him that Erlang had died, he believed in her. In order to protect Pan Jinlian, he married her. He knew he was not worthy of her and knew that Pan Jinlian would not fall in love with him, so he kept sleeping in different rooms. He had hoped that he would one day move her, but by then she would be his true wife. Now that Erlang has returned, he has become a hero in the fight against tigers that people admire. Looking back at the way Erlang looked at her during meals, Wu Daolong he planned to change his original plan, but he was calculating a new one in his heart. After thinking it over and over, a smile finally appeared on his face. He affectionately glanced at Pan Jinlian, who was already asleep on the bed, and a rare hint of tenderness appeared on his face. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Pan Jinlian 5. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Pan Jinlian 5. Wu Song was appointed as a constable by the county magistrate for his achievements in fighting tigers, and he was also considered an imperial envoy and received imperial food. He was a straightforward and capable person, and soon he convinced the Yamen guards that he was their leader. Thinking that Pan Jinlian's marriage to his brother had become a fact, Wu Song no longer entangled himself with his previous emotions and asked no more questions. At home, he tried to avoid spending time alone with his sister. In law. After a few days, he still felt that it was awkward for the three of them to live together, so he suggested to his brother to move to the yamen, but was rejected by Wu Dalong. On that day, Wu Song raised this request again, and Yanbing didn't say anything on the side, because she also felt that the three of them lived together and looked at Wu Song every day. The pain of wanting and afraid of love tormented her every day, so in this pain, she actually hoped that Wu Song would move out. Moving out, I can't see anymore, and my heart doesn't feel so chaotic anymore. Erlang, it's my birthday in 3 days. You haven't come home for so many years, and I just hope you can stay at home with me for 3 more days, Wu Dalong pleaded. Seeing how much older brother wished he could stay for another 3 days, Wu Song thought that 3 days would soon pass and nodded. Erlang, I'm happy today. Come and have a drink with my brother. Wu Dalong happily poured a glass of wine for Wu Song. Brother, I'll do it myself. Wu Song stood up, took the glass, and drank it all in one gulp. Erlang, you have another drink. Wu Song poured another glass. Okay, I'll drink. Wu Song took the wine and drank it happily. Jinlian, it's rare for everyone to be happy. You can also have a drink. Wu Dalong poured another glass of wine and handed it to Yanbing as she remained silent on the side. Dalong, I don't know how to drink, forget it. Yanbing quickly waved her hand. In modern times, she gets drunk easily, but with Wu Song around today, she can't make a fool of herself if she gets drunk. Seeing that she didn't drink, Wu Dalong felt a bit anxious. After thinking for a moment, he walked into the kitchen and after a while, he came out with a bowl of chicken soup. He filled her with a bowl of chicken soup and said with a smile, "This is what I specially made for you. You should drink it while it's hot." Thinking of Wu Dalong's usual kindness to herself, Yanbing took the bowl and drank it without much thought. After drinking for a while, Wu Song and Yanbing both collapsed on the table. Watching them faint, Wu Dalong first helped Wu Song into the room, then helped Yanbing to Wu Song's room. When he placed her on Wu Song's bed, he glanced at both of them and quietly left the room. Wu Dalong sighed and entered the kitchen. He was forced to make this decision. He knew that Pan Jinlian and Wu Song had feelings for each other. It was only a few years ago when he misunderstood that Erlang had died that he married Pan Jinlian. At that time, women could only marry once under normal circumstances. Even if their husband died, good women could not remarry, but had to keep their husbands clean. For the sake of Pan Jinlian's reputation, he couldn't let her go. Pan Jinlian has been married to him for almost 10 years, and he hasn't touched her. It's not because he doesn't love her, but because he's too fond to let her sad and force her to do good things with him. Therefore, although they are husband and wife these years, they are famous but not real. Now that Wu Song has returned, he knows that it is even more impossible for him and Pan Jinlian to become a true couple. Since it's impossible, it's better to fulfill them. Even if Wu Song can't marry Pan Jinlian in the future, let Pan Jinlian give birth to a child for the Wu family, and keep it for the Wu family, he can still be considered worthy of the second elder. Wu Dalong thought to himself, but the two people in the room didn't know what had happened to him. Yanbing only felt hot and uncomfortable all over her body. At this moment, her clothes seemed to have become shackles, and she danced her hands around. She felt like there was someone next to her, so she couldn't help but lean over. It seems that the person also tightly hugged her, and their affection was on the verge of breaking out. Wu Dalong remained awake, listening to the commotion in the room until he could no longer hear it. He quietly arrived at Wu Song's room, sighed, wrapped Yanbing in clothes, and carried her to his own room. He dressed her and saw that there were no flaws. Then, he went to Wu Song's room to tidy up and lay down to sleep. For 3 consecutive days, Wu Dalong used this method to keep the two of them together for 3 nights. 3 days later, Wu Dalong happily asked the two of them to celebrate his birthday with him, and then agreed to let Wu Song live in the yamen. If people have no impression of what they have done, it's hard to say. Yanbing has some feelings about what happened on these 3 nights, but she thinks she loved Wu Song too deeply and had such a dream. She ignored the pain in her body and had such a dream. She felt a little happy because in the dream, Wu Song truly belonged to her. Although they only had a dream of being married for 3 days, she was satisfied. Although An Yanbing thought this way in her heart, she couldn't seem to see anything on the surface. It seemed like nothing had happened, and Wu Song might have thought the same way. Although she was a bit puzzled, she didn't want to ask. As time passed, Wu Song forgot about this matter and focused solely on serving the yamen and the people. Occasionally, she would come and go to see her brother in a hurry. After having such a dream, An Yanbing's mood actually improved a lot because she finally understood the relationship between men and women. Although it only happened in her dream, she still felt that she had become a true woman. In her daily life, she still practices the martial arts in the pamphlet quietly. When she doesn't want to practice, she accompanies Wu Daolong to sell xiaobing, baked cake and griddle. Wu Daolong sells xiaobing, baked cake and griddle. She smiles to greet her and is busy collecting money. She occasionally wipes the sweat on Wu Daolong's head with a handkerchief. To outsiders, they look like a loving couple. This outsider also includes Shimin Qing. Since being played with by An Yanbing, his desire to get her has become even more determined. People often do this, and the less they can get, the more they want to get it. She is now like a beautiful fairy to him, and he always hopes to get her favor. These days, he has been looking for opportunities. He is not afraid of Wu Daolong, but afraid of Wu Song. This man who is not even afraid of tigers, how can he deal with him? End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Pan Jinlian 6. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7 Pan Jinlian 6. On this day, Shimin Qing finally had an opportunity. Wu Song went to another county due to a case and was afraid that he would not be able to return within a day or two. Without Wu Song by his side, Shimin Qing's courage increased a bit. As soon as An Yanbing accompanied Wu Daolong out of the house, Shimin Qing blocked their way and said, "Madam Wu, we've met again. Get out of here, don't get in the way, it's affecting our business," and Yanbing didn't expect this person to have such thick-skinned anger. "Today I have all the xiaobing, baked cake and griddle. Let's go and pick them up at my house." Shimin Qing smiled. Wu Daolong is an honest man. Hearing this, he was so happy that he took the burden and left. An Yanbing stopped him hurriedly. "Daolong, he is not a good man. We will not sell him this xiaobing, baked cake and griddle. Shida officials are influential figures here, they won't deceive us. Let's go," Wu Daolong said before leaving. An Yanbing couldn't stop him and couldn't tell him what had happened. She sighed in her heart and had to follow behind him. Upon arriving at Shimin Mansion, Shimin Qing immediately closed the gate and ordered several family members to guard it. Wu Daolong suddenly felt something was wrong and said in terror, "What do you want to do?" Shimin Qing took out a stack of silver banknotes and placed them on the table. "As long as you agree to let Pan Jinlian rest, these money will immediately belong to you." An Yanbing quickly said, "Daolong, you can't take me off, you can't take me off. He's a bad guy." Wu Daolong didn't look at the silver ticket and looked at her and said, "Don't worry, Jinlian. I won't rest with you unless I die. Give me a toast, don't eat, give me a fine, give me a hard beating," said Shimin Qing angrily. A few people rushed forward and gave Wu Daolong a fierce beating. Soon, Wu Daolong fell to the ground covered in blood. "If we continue to fight like this, Wu Daolong will be killed by them." And Yanbing became anxious and suddenly rushed towards Shimin Qing, pulling out his sword from his waist and putting it around his neck, saying, "Let them stop quickly, otherwise I will die in front of you immediately." Shimin Qing's purpose in doing this was to get An Yanbing. How could he let her die? He quickly said, "Stop it, I'll release him right away." "Let's go," An Yanbing said angrily. Forceful efforts are not sweet. It seems that he needs to find another way. With this in mind, Shimin Qing said, open the door and let them go. A few men looked at him with some surprise, saw him nod, and then opened the door. And Yanbing threw down her sword, helped Wu Dalong up, and walked out of the West Gate mansion. These days, she has been selling xiaobing, baked cake and griddle, with Wu Dalong. She has recorded her way home, left Shiman Mansion, and rented a carriage immediately. Returning to the room, and Yanbing gently wiped away the blood from Wu Dalong's body, changed him into a clean clothes, helped him lie down on the bed, and then walked out of the house to get medicine. After grabbing 3 pairs of medicine, and Yanbing quickly began to decoct the medicine when she returned home. After about an hour, Wu Dalong woke up. And Yanbing poured him a glass of water and apologetically said, "Dalong, I'm sorry. It's not your fault, but unfortunately my burden has been with me for over a decade," Wu Dalong said with some regret. "Don't worry, when your body recovers, you can do something better." And Yanbing smiled slightly, then helped Wu Dalong up and took the medicine cooked on the table. "Drink some medicine, eat something, and lie down for a while." Wu Dalong glanced at her without saying anything, just opening his mouth. "You rest well, I'll come back later," and Yanbing said. Because Wu Song doesn't live at home, Wu Dalong still lives in Wu Song's room. She tidied up the dishes and returned to her room. It seemed like she needed to hurry up and practice martial arts, otherwise she would still be bullied by others in the future. Thinking of this, she sat on the bed and started practicing again. She is currently practicing internal skills. According to the booklet, she can only practice moves with internal strength. The next day, Wu Dalong was still resting at home. Due to his severe injury, his body was still unable to move, and she had to take care of his clothes and meals. She had no complaints about these matters. The most distressing thing for her these 2 days was helping Wu Dalong solve the problem. Although she was his wife, she was only a nominal couple, so every time she untied Wu Dalong's pants, she closed her eyes and didn't dare to look. "Sometimes I accidentally bump into him, my face turns red, but thinking that I am his wife makes me feel at ease." After 3 days like this, Wu Dalong's hands were basically able to move, and he avoided some awkward situations. Wu Song has not returned these days, but she feels a little relieved because with Wu Song's nature of fighting for justice, once she finds out that her brother has been beaten, she will definitely go to find Shiman Qing. Although Wu Song is powerful, Shiman Qing also knows some martial arts. Coupled with his subordinates, Wu Song may not be able to escape unscathed, so it's better not to let him know. I haven't seen Wu Song for a few days. Apart from worrying about him, and Yanbing also thinks of him. Although she knows that she shouldn't think of Wu Song in her own identity, she just can't control herself. Missing her is a poison that will accumulate deeper and ferment. As Wu Song slowly disappeared, she sometimes wondered if he had gone to see Sun Ernyang. She knew that Sun Ernyang liked Wu Song, and if Wu Song had married her, she wouldn't have married Zhang Qing. Although Wu Song has not yet climbed Liangshan, he has become friends with some heroes. If given the opportunity, and Yanbing would also like to meet these Liangshan heroes. "Jinlian, help me to the kitchen," and Yanbing was lost in thought when she suddenly heard Wu Dalong call me. She didn't know what he wanted, so she helped him to the kitchen. Wu Dalong's gaze fell on the wood piled up in the corner of the wall, saying, "These should be enough to make 2 wooden boxes, but they may be smaller than before." It turned out that he wanted to make a wooden box for xiaobing, baked cake and griddle. And Yanbing said hurriedly, "Don't be busy until you are well. When you are well, we can order one on the street. I can take another night off today, and my health will be almost better tomorrow," Wu Dalong said. "Take some time today to buy some rivets, buy more, so as not to run out of time." "Well, okay." Seeing that she couldn't persuade him, and Yanbing nodded helplessly. As Yanbing was about to leave, Wu Dalong suddenly grabbed her hand and said, "Jinlian, if you find out in the future that I have deceived you, please forgive me." And Yanbing didn't understand what he was saying, but seeing that he was weak and embarrassed to ask, she smiled and said, "No matter what you did to me, I forgave you." "Are you telling the truth?" Wu Dalong said happily. Yes, it's true, and Yanbing nodded again. As I walked out of the room, I asked myself in my heart, what did his words mean and what did he do to me? He is so honest and kind, shouldn't he harm me? End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Pan Jinlian 7. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Pan Jinlian 7 and Yanbing and Wu Dalong were having dinner at home. When they heard a knock on the door, they thought it was Wu Song who had returned. Unexpectedly, when they opened the door, they welcomed Shimin Qing, followed by Wang Pe and several men. What are you doing here? Get out quickly, and Yanbing said angrily. Madam Wu, the Western Grand Official is here today to negotiate with Wu Dalong. You can let him in, said Wang Pe with a smile. I don't have much to talk to him about, please ask him out, Wu Dalong said with a gloomy expression. Shimin Qing pushed aside and Yanbing, placed a stack of silver bills next to Wu Dalong, and took out a piece of paper, saying, as long as you sign on this divorce certificate, these silver bills will all belong to you. Wu Dalong remained silent, while Yanbing looked coldly at Shimin Qing from the side. As long as Wu Dalong didn't sign, let's see what other tricks he was up to. Dalong, don't be foolish. Look at this, it's such a good thing. As long as you sign, you'll have money to buy a house, and Jinlian doesn't have to suffer with you anymore. What a good thing, hurry up and sign, Wang Pe bewitched on the side. I can't bear such blessings, and Yanbing sneered from the side. Yes, we don't need such blessings, Wu Dalong said coldly. You. Why are you so ignorant? Wang Pe looked at the two of them dissatisfied and said, today she is here to do their ideological work. Shimin Qing promised to give them a heavy thank you after everything is done. Now that these two people are so uncooperative, they are afraid to cut off their financial path. Thinking of this resentment, she looked at them and turned her gaze to Shimin Qing. Shida officials, what should we do now? Shimin Qing looked at the two of them and suddenly grabbed Yanbing's neck with his hand, saying, what I can't get, no one else can expect to get. With her throat pinched, Yanbing immediately felt a bit of difficulty breathing. She wondered if she had just died here. If she had died in the hands of Shimin Qing, she should have completed the task and could have left here. She thought to herself, but Wu Dalong became anxious. Seeing her face deteriorating, he quickly said, you let go of her, I'll sign. Shimin Qing let go of Yanbing and said, is that right? Why bother not get along with the money? Yanbing rushed to Wu Dalong's side and grabbed his hand, saying, you can't sign. I was born into the martial arts family, and death is a ghost of the martial arts family. Tie her up quickly, block her mouth, Shimin Qing shouted. Several men immediately walked over, tied her up, and blocked her mouth with a towel. Sign quickly, if you don't sign again, I'll kill Pan Jinlian, said Shimin Qing angrily. Wu Dalong glanced at Yanbing and picked up his pen. Shimin Qing looked at the signed document and happily put it away. He walked up to Yan and pinched her face, saying with a smile, little beauty, you will be mine from now on. I won't let you suffer any injustice. He looked at Wu Dalong, who had not touched the silver bill, and his eyes turned. Suddenly, he said, no, if you go back on your word in the future and say I forced you to sign, what will you do? I have always believed that dead people do not lie. After giving a glance to Wang Pe, she walked into the kitchen and soon came out with a bowl of medicine. De Lang, drink it. I have already signed the letter, what do you mean? Wu Dalong angrily said. Let you die, if you don't die, she won't truly belong to me, said Shimin Qing coldly and cruelly. You're dreaming, Wu Dalong said and went to snatch the bowl from Wang Pe's hand, intending to destroy it. Wang Pe ran away holding it. Stupid, don't hold him down yet. Shimin Qing cursed at the man beside him, and the others quickly rushed over to hold down Wu Dalong. Wang Pe, pour the medicine down for him, Shimin Qing said coldly. Wang Pe hesitated for a moment, walked over with a bowl in hand, and immediately someone helped her pry open Wu Dalong's mouth. Wang Pe mercilessly poured the medicine into him. And Yanbing saw this scene with pain in her eyes and heart. She didn't expect that her arrival had not changed Wu Dalong's fate of being poisoned to death. Watching Wu Dalong struggle in pain after being poisoned, she had no choice but to watch helplessly. Seeing that Wu Dalong had been poisoned to death, Shimin Qing smiled proudly before releasing her hand. And Yanbing quickly ran to Wu Dalong's side, picked up her already somewhat cold body and called out, "Dalong, wake up quickly." At this moment, someone pushed the door and entered. Shimin Qing turned around and saw that it was Wu Song. He was startled and quickly shouted, "Stop him." Several men blocked Wu Song's way, but he was not his opponent. After a few hits, he was knocked down to the ground by Wu Song. "Brother, what's wrong with you?" Wu Song ran up to Wu Dalong and shook his body, but Wu Dalong couldn't wake up anymore. "Sister-in-law, what's going on?" Wu Song asked. At this moment, An Yanbing only knew how to cry and didn't know how to tell Wu Song. Seeing her not speaking, Wu Song walked up to Wang Pe and pointed his sword at her coldly, saying, "What's going on? Tell me quickly." Wang Pe's eyes turned cunningly and said, "It was she who colluded with Shimin Qing and was poisoned to death when the Lang saw her." Lang, you can't keep such a bad woman." "Really? What are you doing at my house?" Wu Song's sharp gaze turned towards her, and Wang Pe was so scared that she trembled all over. She stuttered and said, "I have nothing to do. I came here to sneak through the door, but I didn't expect to see that Dalong was killed. How could I be so unlucky?" She pretended to be sad and burst into tears. When Wu Song was talking to Wang Pe, Shimin Qing stood up and retreated towards the door. As he was about to escape, Wu Song rushed over and started fighting with him. Seeing his brother's tragic death, he seemed to have forgotten that he was still a constable. When he fought with Shimin Qing, he used all his strength with his sword and sword. In no time, Shimin Qing was killed by him. "I heard that you have hurt many women for the sake of money. It seems that you are not a good person either," Wu Song said without hesitation and killed Wang Pe. Then she approached An Yanbing step by step. She saw that he had already killed her and her eyes were red. She knew that he couldn't listen to anything she said at this moment, let alone that Wu Dalong died because of her, so she closed her eyes. "Sister-in-law, do you have anything to explain?" Wu Song asked coldly. "There's nothing to explain, your brother died because of me. You should kill me," An Yanbing said and closed her eyes. "Brother Wu Song, she didn't harm people." Suddenly, a little boy around 10 years old ran in. Wu Song knew him, and it was the neighbor's child, Stone. "Stone, what are you saying?" Wu Song patted the child's head and asked. "Big brother was not caused by this sister, it was her and him." The boy pointed to the dead Wang Pe and Shimin Qing, and told Wu Song what he had secretly seen through the window. "I see, sister-in-law, I misunderstood you," Wu Song said apologetically. An Yanbing raised her tearful eyes and was about to say something when she saw a man walking in with a few Yamen runners, pointing at Wu Song and saying, "He killed my master." "Head, why are you?" the Yamen attendant exclaimed in surprise, looking at several corpses in the room and looking at Wu Song with some confusion. "These people were all killed by me. I'll go with you, don't make things difficult for others," Wu Song said and glanced at An Yanbing before following the Yamen guard. An Yanbing put away her tears and began to decorate the funeral hall at home. Although Wu Dalong's body was also taken away, she still followed the local customs and stayed at home for 7 days. After 7 days, it was the day of burial. At this time, Wu Dalong's body had been returned, and An Yanbing buried Wu Dalong in mourning. Wu Song has not returned these days. She speculates that Wu Song should have been saved by Sun Ernyang and Hua monk Lu Jishan, and may have already gone up Liangshan. After experiencing these things, An Yanbing saw through the world and decided to become a nun. When she arrived at the nunnery and was about to shave, she suddenly felt a pang of nausea and vomiting. An old nun immediately felt her pulse and said with a slightly unpleasant expression, "Almsgiver, you are delighted. It seems that the fate of the world is over, so please go back." And Yanbing walked out of the nunnery, touched her stomach, and said in confusion, "You're happy. So whose child is this?" She suddenly remembered the absurd dreams she had for those 3 days and realized. It turned out that those 3 nights were not dreams, but real events that happened. So, it seems that this should be her child with Wusong. Thinking that Wusong's child was already in her belly, a faint smile appeared on her face. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Pan Jinlian 8. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Pan Jinlian 8. 5 years later, in a remote farmyard, a 4-year-old boy was playing alone in the yard. "Xiaohu, you're being playful again. Can you write the words I taught you?" And Yanbing, dressed in cloth, walked into the courtyard, still so beautiful, but slightly thinner than before. In recent years, she has been both a father and a mother, living a very difficult life, but she has always been patient for her son. In addition to farming land, Yanbing teaches her children to study in the village. Due to her beautiful appearance, she is often entangled by the men in the village. Fortunately, in recent years, she has improved her martial arts skills from the booklet. Although her martial arts are not very high, she can still protect herself. Her son is good-looking and very intelligent. She plans to teach him how to read first and then teach him martial arts in a few years. She wants her son to become a great hero like his father. What embarrasses Yanbing the most is that every time her son asks who her father is, she is speechless, saying that Wu Daolong cannot force himself to say anything, but she is actually his wife, although only a nominal couple. But she didn't want to deceive the child. It seemed inappropriate to say Wusong. She didn't know how to explain her relationship with Wusong to the child, so she lied to her son that his father had gone on a long journey and would not be able to come back in a few years. It was difficult to inquire about a person in this backward era. Based on past life memories, Wusong was quite intelligent and did not believe in Zhaoan. Later, he saw through the world and left home. Since Pan Jinlian, who should have died in his hands, did not die and gave birth to a child for him, has something changed in the dark. And Yanbing doesn't know, but she hopes for a little change, even a small one. One day, when she returned from teaching, her son was talking to someone in the courtyard. And Yanbing quickly pulled her son over and said, "Little tiger, how did I teach you? Don't talk to strangers, there are many scammers." "Mother, he said he's not a bad person, I believe him," Xiaohu said with a smile. "The bad person's face is not engraved, how do you know if it's good or bad?" And Yanbing glared at her son, indicating that she should give him some knowledge in this area. "Jinlian, it's me," the man who had been silent suddenly spoke. "The voice is so familiar, who could this person be? Is it him?" And Yanbing's heart jumped wildly, wanting to look back, but afraid that it would only be a dream. "Jinlian, it's me," the man said again and shook her trembling body. Sure enough, it was Wusong. And Yanbing glanced at him a few times and didn't become the one-armed hero as he had said in his previous life. He was still as handsome as 5 years ago, only slightly darker. "Jinlian, you're losing weight," Wusong said with a heartache as he placed his fingers on her face. Suddenly being so intimate with her, she felt a bit uncomfortable and gently pushed him away. "Erlang, it's rare for you to come home. I'll cook for you," she said before leaving. Wusong grabbed her and pointed to the child in the courtyard, asking excitedly, "Who is this child?" And Yanbing couldn't explain to him the absurd dreams of those 3 days and quickly said, "This is my child with your brother. Jinlian, I know everything that happened. This is me and your child." Wusong once again hugged her in his arms. Why is Wusong so strange when she comes back this time? She used to be called sister. In law, but how did she name her today? With this in mind, and Yanbing lifted her head and said, "Erlang, how did you know?" "When I was sorting out my brother's belongings, I found a letter he wrote to me. In the letter, he said everything, Jinlian. Actually, I also had some feelings during those 3 days." Wusong smiled and hugged her even tighter. "The child is watching," and Yanbing said with a red face. Wusong turned his head and saw that little tiger was indeed looking at them curiously with bright big eyes open. Wusong let go of me, picked up the little one, and asked with a smile, "Do you want to see your father?" "You are my dad," little tiger smiled sweetly. "My son is really smart. Can you tell Dad your name?" Wusong asked with a smile. "My name is Wulua City, what is my father's real name?" Little tiger asked in response. "My name is Wusong, kid, remember?" Wusong smiled and put down his son. "My father is a great hero, so I am the son of a great hero." Xiaohu excitedly patted his hand. "Who told you?" Wusong asked with a smile. "It was my mother who told me that you are a great hero," Xiaohu smiled innocently. "Xiaohu, do you wish to have a younger brother or sister?" Wusong smiled and said. "Hope," said little tiger with a cracked mouth. "Then you can play in the yard yourself and don't disturb us, so your mother will soon give birth to a younger brother or sister for you," Wusong said with a smile, like a scammer who promised to give candy to a child, making Yanbing cover her mouth and smile. "Mother, then you go," little tiger nodded obediently. Wusong pulled her into the inner room, closed the door, hugged her, and affectionately said, "Jinlian, I love you, I want you." After saying that, he kissed her after several entanglements, and Yanbing lay in his arms, staring at him without blinking, afraid that it was just a dream, afraid that she would close her eyes and not see him again. "Jinlian, what's wrong with you?" Wusong asked curiously as she stared at him blankly. "I'm afraid you'll disappear again when I close my eyes, I'm afraid." Before Yanbing could finish speaking, Wusong covered her mouth and said, "Don't say such things. I won't leave again in the future, stay with you." "Really?" And Yanbing said excitedly. "Really, please prepare and I will arrange a wedding for you in a few days." "I want you to be my true wife," said Wusong, who knew her. "You're so kind," and Yanbing said with emotion. "I've been looking for you all these years, but fortunately I found you. We'll never be apart again," Wusong said gently, holding me in his arms. 3 days later, the two officially paid respects and got married. Although it was in a small village, the wedding was still very lively, attracting many guests and some friends from the martial arts world. 2 years later, Yanbing gave birth to a pair of twins. Although life was very ordinary, she still felt very happy. 60 years later, she lay in bed and now she has a family full of children and grandchildren. What's there to worry about? With a loving gaze, she looked at Wusong who was still holding her hand and left this world satisfied. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Yangguo 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Yangguo 1. And Yanbing felt her soul float up. Am I dead again? As she thought to herself, a long-lost voice suddenly came to her ear. Congratulations on returning from completing the mission. I haven't heard this voice for decades, and for a moment, Yanbing couldn't remember who he was. After thinking for a while, she finally remembered that it was the man who gave her a task. The man was still good-looking and still so captivating, but she didn't know how to call him. She glanced at him and said, "Who and who? I have completed the task, what reward is there?" "I'm not calling anyone, my name is Yi Junyi, please remember," the man said displeasedly, waving his hand as a new set of data appeared in front of her. Gender: female, variable, name. Yanbing: age: 20 years old. Intelligence: 41, out of 100, appearance: 53, out of 100, physical strength: 53, out of 100, force. Currently unavailable skill. Currently unavailable specialty. Currently unavailable charm. 11 out of 100 spiritual power. 11 out of 100 integral. 10 obtained by completing tasks, can be used to extract various items or skills. Rebirth rate. 1. Why is there still no force, skills, and specialties at the moment? Looking at the new data, she was somewhat dissatisfied and said that after suffering for decades in ancient times, she still had none of these 3 items, which is a bit sad. These 3 rely on points to draw. When the points reach 50, you can draw once. Seeing that you completed your first task well, I can give you an additional small reward. Yi Junyi suddenly laughed. He smiled so beautifully, and Yanbing became obsessed with flowers again. Yi Junyi suddenly tapped her head and said, "The broken arm continuation court cream is your reward. Do you want it?" Yanbing regained her senses and said, "I'm not a fool, don't waste it." "Okay, then you continue." Yi Junyi waved her hand and something flew into her hand. "What is my task this time?" Yanbing asked anxiously as Yi Junyi pushed her into the time and space tunnel. "Once you go, you'll know." Yi Junyi finished speaking and disappeared. This Night Junyi is really amazing. It's been decades since I last saw him. He still doesn't want me to take a good look at him, and he gave me a new mission, keeping it a secret. Hey! As she was lost in thought, she suddenly felt dizzy in front of her. Yanbing then fell into a coma and forgot about the people and things from the first mission, as if drinking mengpa soup. When she opened her eyes, Yanbing was surprised to find that her hands and feet had become smaller. No, her whole body had become smaller. What surprised her the most was not only that, but also that there was an extra thing between her legs. She touched it with her hand and quickly understood that she had become a man this time. No, she was a little brat, but she didn't know who the child was. Where is this? Yanbing looked around, surrounded by many peach blossoms, and it seemed like an island. As she was speculating about what the place was, a little girl of her age rushed over and said, "Yanghua, I've been looking for you everywhere. It turns out you're hiding here, and your mother is looking for you. You go quickly." She stopped looking at her and left. Originally, I became Yanghua. Is it Yanghua from The Legend of the Condor Heroes? Just don't know what the mission is this time. When she thought of the task, her palms suddenly lit up and a line of words appeared, "Change the destiny of little dragon girl." Xiaolongnu, yes, Yanghua eventually married Xiaolongnu, but she waited for 16 years in the Desperate Valley. A woman can have a few 16 years in her life. If it weren't for these 16 years of hard work, it would have changed her fate. And there is also the matter of Zhen Jibing tarnishing Xiaolongnu, and she needs to find ways to stop it. Yanghua will grow up to be a handsome man, regardless of whether he is handsome or beautiful. Thinking of this, Yanbing stood up and suddenly fell out of her arms with a beautiful small bottle. This should be what Yi Junyi said about the broken arm continuation cream. Yanbing put it away, maybe it will be useful in the future. Aunt Gua, Yanbing, lowered her head and walked into Huang Rong's room, like a child who had made a mistake. She had no choice but to be cautious in front of Huang Rong, who had high martial arts skills and was also the leader of the beggars sect. She was naturally strong and had a strong aura. She didn't like Yanghua, so Yanbing could only be cautious in front of her. Guayer, stop being naughty and memorize the mnemonic well. Uncle Gua is coming back soon, Huang Rong said lightly. To be honest, she doesn't like Yanghua. Every time she sees Yanghua, she thinks of his father Yang Kong. She killed Yang Kong. If this child knew she had killed Yang Kong, she wouldn't know what she would think. Yes, aunt, then I'll go out. Yanbing quickly walked out of Huang Rong's room. She knew that Huang Rong didn't like Yanghua and had always taught only mnemonics and not martial arts. Therefore, Yanghua lived on Taohua Island for over a year and memorized many mnemonics, but he didn't know any martial arts at all. Guo Jing was also an honest person. Occasionally, when checking martial arts, she only asked him about his mnemonics, and when he answered fluently, she no longer doubted him. In the first mission, she should have learned some skills, but now she has lost them all. She can't even remember the people and things in the first mission. It seems that she can't keep what doesn't truly belong to her. It seems that she needs to find another opportunity to practice martial arts. She knew that besides her daughter Guofu, Huang Rong also had 2 disciples, De Wu and Xiao Wu. Huang Rong taught them 3 seriously. Why not secretly go and watch them practice martial arts? After making up her mind, and Yanbing searched for 3 people in Peach Blossom Island. Peach Blossom Island was not very big, and she soon found the 3 people, but couldn't see what they were practicing. She tried again and again, but couldn't get in. It seems that Huang Rong was really on guard against her, even using formations. Anyway, since Huang Rong didn't want to teach, she didn't learn. It's better to find an opportunity to meet Xiao Longnu early. Here, only Xiao Longnu should be sincere to Yangguo. And Yanbing is bored wandering around the island. If she wants to leave Peach Blossom Island early, she wants to make Huang Rong hate me even more. How can she hate herself? She thought about it for a moment, and it should be easy. Huang Rong didn't like her at all, but she took her in because of Guo Jing and Yangguo's mother Mu Nianxi. She thought that if she were to confront Huang Rong every day, perhaps it wouldn't be long before Huang Rong wanted to drive her away. At that time, her opportunity would come, and she could naturally go to the Chuanjin sect. The ancient tomb was not far from the Chuanjin sect. She must make the Chuanjin sect upside down and not disturb it. She wouldn't call her Yangguo. In fact, there are a few people in the Chuanjin sect that she still admires very much, such as Qiu Chuji and Qiu Daochang. Although they are not bad people, it's a pity that sometimes good and bad are indistinguishable. Since she couldn't peek, and Yanbing stopped looking and decided to go back to her room to take a beauty nap. When she finished sleeping, she would come up with some ideas to anger Huang Rong. A meow came into Yanbing's ear, and according to Yangguo's memory, she knew that it was a stray cat that Yangguo had taken in. This stray cat had silently accompanied him on this island for over a year. Xiao Bai, she let out a gentle cry and hugged the running cat into her arms. End of this chapter.